Hi, friend. Welcome to Holly's Highlights, a podcast designed to encourage, inspire, and equip you to intentionally live your life full of purpose. I'm your host, Holly Kirby, motivational speaker, leadership cultivator, marketing strategist, and personal cheerleader. Let's check out today's highlight. If you're enjoying this podcast and want to be part of a community of people who are committed to growing, living with purpose, and encouraging others, I'd love to invite you to join my free monthly email. Each month, I send practical resources straight to your inbox, including a simple worksheet to help you reflect and grow, inspiring articles, podcast episodes that are especially relevant for the season, a helpful recipe to try out that month, and my favorite feature, Moral of the Story, a short message to encourage you to keep showing up with purpose and intention. As a subscriber, you'll also be the first to hear about special offers, upcoming events, and where I'll be speaking next. It's completely free, and it's a simple way to stay connected with this community beyond the podcast. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, I welcome you to head over to www.hollykirby.com and sign up today. That's www.hollykirby.com. Hi, friends. Let me ask you something. When you dial 911, what do you picture happening on the other end before help arrives? Is it fast, controlled, immediate? Now imagine this. Those next few minutes before anyone gets there can determine whether someone lives or dies. Now, if you were with us from last episode, we had leaders from Sandy City Police with us in honor of National Police Week. Well, as we wrap up May, this month also included both International Firefighters Day and National EMS Week. So it seems fitting to recognize the men and women who answer these calls in one way or another every single day. Now, I had the opportunity to sit inside a 911 dispatch center and listen to real emergency calls. It was fascinating, but it was also eye-opening. Now, here are a few things that really stuck with me. EMS responds to more than 40 million calls every year in the United States. An average response time is about 7 minutes in urban areas and can exceed around 14 or more minutes in rural communities. In cardiac arrest, survival drops by 7 to 10% for every minute without CPR, and nearly 70% of emergency calls are medical. They're not even fire related. Behind every one of those calls is a real person showing up in someone else's worst moment. And today, we're going behind the scenes with someone who has spent nearly 3 decades doing exactly that. Ryan McConaghie recently became fire chief of the Sandy City Fire Department after almost 25 years of service with the department. Over the courses of his career, he has served in every level of leadership, including firefighter, paramedic, engineer, captain, battalion chief, and deputy chief. Ryan began his fire service career 27 years ago as a volunteer firefighter in Springville, Utah. He later joined Sandy City in 2001 and went on to complete paramedic training at the Utah Valley University. He has degrees with Brigham Young University, Utah Valley University, and even Ricks College. And he's earned supervising and managing fire officer designations from the Utah Fire and Rescue Academy. Beyond his local service, though, Ryan has worked as an expedition paramedic for Choice Humanitarian on humanitarian trips to Bolivia, Nepal, and Kenya. Overall, Ryan is someone who deeply values the people he serves with and the relationships he's built throughout his career. Chief McConaghie, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you, Holly. It's a privilege and an honor to be here.
Thank you. Let's start here. Did you always know this was your path, or what led you into the area of service?
I think it always was my path, but I wasn't aware of it until a little bit later in life. But it was not part of the structure framework that I had thought out. But as I look back over my life in growing up and in scouts and different things, fire was always fascinating to me, and it was always my desire to help and do what I could. But it was later when I was working in my local church and that with other leaders that some of them brought up to my attention that the local fire department in Springville was going to be testing, and they encouraged me to come out and apply. I went out and did the testing and the agility, and it was a little different technique back then. I had to show up on one of the training nights and introduce myself and answer questions to to the volunteer group there, but they accepted me, and then following that, put me through training, and I started my career, I guess, my fire service as a volunteer back then, coming up close to 30 years ago. But it just kind of grew from there, and the more I learned, the more I trained, and started moving into the medical side of things. It all just kind of blossomed, and I'm fortunate to have ended up where I am today.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people have an idea of what your job may look like, right? We get different glimpses of what we see on TV or movies, but it may not be entirely accurate. What does a typical shift actually look like for you?
It's funny that you say that in reference to the movies and TV and things like that, because I joke sometimes with people they don't necessarily understand watching Backdraft or Chicago Fire and things of that nature, that if it was true to life and they did a movie about a fire, it would be completely dark and you wouldn't be able to understand anything. So, which would not make a very good sell. Yeah, it is different than what you're seeing in Hollywood, and day to day in my job now from where I've been over the years has also changed. But the typical job, the typical day to day for a firefighter is you're here for 2 days. You're here, we call it a 4896. So you're on for 2 days, and then you're off for 4 days. And while you're here, of course, we respond on medical and fire related calls. I know you mentioned earlier that anywhere from 70 to 80% of what we do is medical. And so, in addition to responding on those emergencies, we also do public education. We go out and do business inspections. We check hydrants. And then there's just a lot of training. There's the physical fitness aspect of it. We do different scenarios where we'll do fire attacks or medical scenarios for cardiac or different types of scenarios. But it's just very busy getting things like that done during the day. And then hopefully, if there's some time between calls in the evenings, they can sit down, they cook their dinners together and eat together, and hopefully spend a little downtime in between the calls, because of course we have to respond any time of day throughout the evening. So it is something that you never know what's coming next. And so it's exciting in that way, but it's always busy.
Now, my daughter, she's actually pursuing her EMT to be a firefighter, and as you just mentioned, the whole Chicago fire, she cannot stand it when I sit down. It's one of my favorite shows, but as she shares it, it may not be entirely accurate. So help us out. What's something about EMS or even the firehouse overall that most people completely misunderstood? I realize that if we were watching you in action, it would be dark as you go into a fire. We wouldn't be having anything to really watch. But what is maybe some misunderstandings or just those misconceptions?
Well, I get this question a lot, and over the years it kind of cracks me up, but it's specific to Utah because I can't really speak to areas like Chicago and others, but for the most part here in Utah, it is the same, where the fire departments are the same people. Those that are in the engine and driving and going to the fires, we also are the same people driving the ambulance. And so when you call 911, you're going to get an ambulance and an engine, or an ambulance and a truck. A truck and an engine are very similar. That's who's going to respond to your home or to the street or to whatever the incident is. And so often I get the question of why does the engine, why does the fire department come with the ambulance? They are the same. The fire department is the engine and the ambulance, and they travel together. You usually have three people on the engine or truck, and then you'll have two people on the ambulance. They all live and work together, train together. And so day to day, the two people on the ambulance could switch and then the next day be on the engine. So to answer probably a looming question of how that's possible, is probably worth clarifying that everybody is both trained in fire and in medical. So everybody has the training they need to respond to any type of a call that comes in that way. So it's not the same like if you're watching Chicago, where you've got a separate ambulance and paramedic crew and then a different crew for the firefighting part of it. It's all combined here in Utah to where you're expected to do both jobs and be proficient, which in many ways makes sense. You get more bang for your buck,
Yeah.
but it also entails a lot of training, certifications, and just ongoing preparation to be ready for whatever comes, on the next call.
It sounds like it. Now, a big part of your job is showing up when people are at their most vulnerable. Can you share a call that really stayed with you and why? And maybe a moment where you thought, this is why I do this.
Makes me remember back to when I started earlier in my career. It was a paid on call type of a response. I was at the time running in a rescue truck by myself. And then as a page would come out, the paid on call folks would respond to the station and grab either the engine or the ambulance and then respond to whatever the emergency was. So I was working as a part-time individual. A call came in for a pregnancy problem. And so, of course, I'm running lights and sirens to get there. It happened to be in the neighborhood where I was living at the time, a couple streets down from where my home was. And as I arrived, people came out and just started yelling, she's in labor, she's about to give birth. And so I grabbed my jump kit and everything and ran inside. And so this individual was there in her bedroom on the bed, and as we worked through, it was very evident that it was imminent delivery of the baby. So I was able to work through with her, get everything situated and in position, and to be there to be able to help deliver that child. And it's interesting to me because, 5 minutes later, the rest of the group showed up. By that point, the baby had been delivered, umbilical cord had been cut. But I had to go into the later to the hospital at the request of the doctor to sign the birth certificate. It's funny, through the years, I would see this mom and her child as the child grew, and she would often say, "This is the person that delivered you," and I eventually they got old enough that it's like, "Okay, mom, stop telling me that sort of thing." But I thought about it. It's like that type of thing. It's like having somebody in such an important and intimate moment. I felt, just makes you feel like this is why I do that. This is why I prepared. This is why I've trained for events like that. So just, it's very rewarding.
Absolutely. That is really cool. That is really cool. Now, I imagine not every call ends in that way. How do you handle those emotional calls that you get, just the emotional weight of those harder moments?
That's a good question because there are a lot. I mean, what we do, you're right, is not always like that. It is not always rewarding. And in many ways, it's very difficult physically, mentally. And there's a lot of conversations and talking about this both in training and just type of that post call debrief is kind of how we describe it. But we work through it talking with each other as a crew, and if necessary, that can expand into therapist counseling and whatever that need may look like. But so much of it occurs just in that post call debrief with the members of the crew, and any good crew understands how important that is to just talk about, if it's a tragic, a loss of an individual or a young child or something that it just happens to hit home differently than somebody else on the crew, to really talk it out. And I think all of the crews are aware when somebody just disappears or seems off or quiet. They're readily available to reach out and say, "Hey, what's going on? How can I help? And what are you dealing with?" And I think just verbalizing it and talking it through just helps so much. So in addition to that, we are aware that, exercise and hobbies, those types of things also help decompress and work through, some of the things that are difficult in the job.
Sounds like a lot of discernment goes into this as well, and just being there for each other and being able to guide each other, navigate each other through that. There's
Yeah.
obviously a lot of leadership in real time in your responses too. How do you stay calm and step into leadership when everything around you just feels chaotic or even exhausting?
A lot of it is something you learn, training and just being observant. But so much of it, I think I've heard this so many times from people to say, "I could never do what you do." And I think that is true to a certain degree. But I do remember myself feeling early on that I may not be able to respond to this type of a traumatic call, in a medical or a car crash. But I know, looking back, that as I've continued to learn, go through training, get different certifications, that skill level has increased. My confidence has increased to the point where it's changed from, "Oh no, I don't know what to do," or "I don't want to send me" type of a thought process, that I'm confident, I understand what to do in this situation, and then just time after time going and doing things builds that confidence to where you just know what to do and are able to do it well and kind of put the stress largely out of your mind to be able to just deal with the emergency.
Now, you just touched on something that's, I think, very important for our listeners to hear, and that is we might not all feel called to go into this area of service or that we're capable to do so. However, we often find ourself in situations that we need to respond or someone needs to respond. So perhaps help us understand, let's say I'm at a grocery store and someone suddenly collapses right in front of me. Kind of walk us through what I should do in those first 60 seconds.
Great question. So in that scenario, call 911 or send someone to call 911. We always talk about the assess for breathing, assess for pulse. And I'll kind of just side note there that really would be so beneficial to get the training and get certified in CPR and take first aid because again, as you train and you grow and develop in that type of understanding, you're not afraid of this scenario and you're recognizing that I have the skills to help. So, yes, call 911 and then they'll talk you through and help you get into the position to do CPR, check for breathing. They can talk you through it. And as we know, you can stick your phone on speaker and be able to work through this while you're on the phone. Even better if there's multiple people and have somebody else call while you start doing the steps of CPR. And then, of course, making sure that you're safe in a safe spot and you're not, in an area where you could get harmed. If you're like in a street, to pull out of the street or do whatever you need to. But if it's a situation where there's bleeding that's uncontrolled, that direct pressure so that we'll stop and slow the bleeding until the fire department gets there. So
Now, what if let's kind of switch it into more of I realize that most of them are medical calls, but let's switch it over to a fire situation. What if I'm out on my evening walk in my neighborhood and I hear a neighbor's fire alarm going off? What do I do?
I would say the same, call 911. And this has happened to me personally. I mean, when I'm not at work, I've heard this maybe a dozen times in my neighborhood. You never know because is it a smoke detector? Is it a carbon monoxide? What is it that you're hearing beeping? And I always look for the signs of it look like, this is happening or that is happening. And you just don't always know. So the best scenario is just call 911. A lot of times people say, is there another number that I could call that's non-emergent? Just call 911. It's so much easier. Everybody knows that. And when you get a hold of the dispatcher, they'll ask you what's going on. And you just explain, well, the next door, there's a beeping. It sounds like a smoke alarm. So I don't know. And so they don't expect you to call a different number. If it's anything concerning to you, even if it's as minor as, hey, I see smoke coming from my neighbor's backyard. I don't know if it's a campfire. I don't know. Just call 911 and they'll get it situated and send a crew out there to assess the situation. So that's what I would say in both scenarios is make sure you call 911 just to get the appropriate personnel out there to kind of help mitigate whatever it is that's going on.
Better be safe than sorry, right?
Yeah, right.
Now, when people do try to help, what are some common mistakes that bystanders make that we should avoid?
Sometimes when people go down wherever, a grocery store, church, things like that, it's somebody once upon a time told people to stick sticks in their mouth or try to prop the jaw open and things like that. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. Don't try to stick anything in their mouth, as far as that goes. Just call 911, get them into a position that they're not going to be injuring themselves. For example, in the case of a seizure, you just clear the objects from around them and if needed, just make it a safe spot. In the case of a fire, make sure that you just close doors, close windows. We've seen that a lot where people will have a situation where there's a fire. I'm thinking of, say, a garage fire. You hear something, you smell smoke, you open your garage and there's a fire in there. Shut the door as quickly as possible. And we often tell people when you're sleeping at night, sleep with your door closed. All those doors are designed to give you time, essentially, to where they're not going to burn through very quickly. But close things up, isolate, restrict the amount of air and oxygen that can get to those. So we've seen instances where a neighbor's house is on fire, the garage is on fire, whatever, and people, and in some cases, even the police will show up and just start busting out windows and things, thinking I'm going to ventilate this fire. That's something that can be really, really bad. And if you're not set up and ready to go with the hose, that can make the fire just grow bigger. So don't do anything, just call 911, let the crews get there, and then they have what is referred to as a coordinated attack, where they can ventilate and have the hoses ready to put out fire in a pattern so that it's effective. So those are a couple things that both fire and medical that I've seen as mistakes over the years.
Good to know. Now, most people listening aren't firefighters, but they are leaders in some way, whether it be in their home, at work, in the community, even at school. So, what's one leadership skill from your job that anyone could apply in everyday life?
For me, 90% of success is just showing up. If you obviously have to have some training and some guidance that way, but those that just show up and they're on time where they're supposed to be on the day that they're supposed to be there, I think doing that over and over and over really is what I've seen people turn into success. So I share that. I share that with people that we are offering jobs to here at the fire department, and just showing up is really the lion's share of what you're doing from day to day that makes you successful.
A lot of truth there. Are there any habits or mindset shifts that have helped you grow in showing up?
I think that taking some time to decompress, and when you have the downtime, take advantage of it. Do your hobbies, take a walk, do something that you enjoy, really make it to where it's easier, and you're in a better mind frame when it is time for you to show up. So, you learn, a lot of self-reflection, introspection over the years of what do I need to do to be ready when I show up so that I can really do my job the way that it needs to be done.
With that, is there anything specific that helps you mentally prepare for just the unknowns of your every single day? I mean, that goes into showing up, but definitely what you face, you just never know. There's so many unknowns.
Yeah, one of these may not come across as odd, but the other may. But I do start every day with prayer. I find that it's very good for me. It gets me in a position where I'm thoughtful of and intentional, I should say, of what I want to accomplish and how, and time to reflect on maybe what I could do better. And the other part of that is stretching. I I'm at the point where it helps me be better at my best if I take 5 minutes to just do some stretching. That the older I get, the more that's been helpful for me to prepare for each day.
Yeah, I can so agree. I see her kind of chuckling as you said that, just because I was just having the conversation with my son yesterday. He injured his back, and I was telling him, well, you just need to start stretching in the morning. And he's like, Mom, I'm not old yet. Because I do the same thing. Every morning I get up and I stretch, right? Just to be able to function for your day. So
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into that for sure. The beauty of aging.
Yeah, I'm feeling it.
Yes. What's the most surprising skill that you've learned while you've been on the job there as a firefighter?
Just interacting and working with people. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a different personality. And I think that's a skill that's so important, is just recognizing that different doesn't mean difficult, and that everybody has their own way of doing things, and just being able to work with and interact, because that happens at the fire service level with the personnel here, but we're also interacting with the public on a daily basis, whether it's going to their businesses to do inspections, dropping people off at the hospital, and even to the point where we are dealing with other people at City Hall and yeah, politically and on and on and on. So, developing that art, which you wouldn't have thought is part of the big picture when you get into it and you're doing all the fire training and the medical training, but it's so important that it's just really people based. I mean, our citizens, that's who our clientele is. That's who we serve, and that's why we've, myself included, gotten into this career to be able to make a difference and serve people.
Yeah. Now you just touched on it. We often hear that the fire station is part of the community. It's the people's firehouse. So what are some simple ways that the community can support EMS and firefighters that really make a difference?
I would say just get involved. We in Sandy, and I know the departments around here in Salt Lake Valley, Utah County as well, they all offer community training, whether it's CPR, first aid, medical training. But it's so important that it's just really people based. I mean, our citizens, that's who our clientele is. That that's who we serve, and that's why we've, myself included, gotten into this career to be able to make a difference and serve people. CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, other types of business extinguisher training, and not to mention just the different functions that we offer. I know we have a pancake breakfast last year when we opened up our new fire station. We're going to have another one in the fall in September, but come out to get involved. We're going through a community deal right now where, as part of the celebration for the 250 years of America, we're doing an art contest at the grade school level. And so many things like that we try to do to engage and educate the community. Sign up for your local fire station social media pages on Instagram and Facebook. I mean, there's so many different things that are there to update and offer. So we love that when the citizens come out and ask questions and we can respond to the messages that they post on there. But there's so many ways to get involved with your local police and fire departments.
I, for one, value how approachable our fire department is here in Sandy. I know for my son, when he was in elementary school, he did the reflections contest where they do a picture and a whole story, and he did it on their firehouse on our local fire station. And they were so good to give him a little tour of the fire truck and take a picture in front of the fire truck with him for that project. And then even we like to take a meal to each of our firehouses in Sandy City each year. And so the main station last year gave us a full tour of the station there. And they're just very open-armed, welcoming. And I really appreciated that. It's made my son feel like he can approach firefighters if he needs to. So I think they've done a wonderful job. And of course, that is kudos to you and your team. So thank you for that. Now,
Yeah.
I'm curious here on just some rapid fire questions. If you're game to do this with me, if I ask you just a few questions and you quickly answer, would you be up for this? Anything that comes to your mind first off?
Yeah, I'll try to be, I'll
Okay.
be Johnny on the spot. I'll
All
try to
right,
be
here we go.
quick.
Coffee or energy drinks?
Energy drinks.
Biggest adrenaline rush call?
Fire every time.
One word to describe your job.
Rewarding.
Something people would be surprised you carry every shift.
Sunscreen and chapstick.
Okay, yes, I am surprised. Best way someone can say thank you.
Cards or a note. And
Hmm.
and of course cookies.
One trait every great leader needs.
Patience.
Favorite firefighter or EMS show to watch?
I
That's a
don't.
trick question, huh?
I don't. So I don't watch one because I roll my eyes when I watch them.
You're like my daughter. Yes, okay. Favorite firehouse meal?
I like grilled chicken salad.
All right. All right. As we start to wrap up, if someone listening wants to be more prepared or get involved, where should they start?
It's several options, but I would say take a class, get certified in CPR. Really builds confidence and makes you ready and available to respond in an emergency.
What would you say to someone who feels nervous about stepping in during an emergency?
I would tell them that that's normal. And the more you practice, the more you get the training, that will reduce, that will go down. It may always exist, but once you get to where you're confident and you've done enough training and classes and things of that nature, that you'll feel more and more willing and able to respond to an emergency.
All right. Now we have a signature question here on Holly's Highlights. If you could go back and encourage, inspire, or even equip yourself as a child, what would you tell your young self?
I would say hang in there, keep going, keep working. It will turn out better than you expect.
Chief, thank you so much for being here and for both your leadership to your teams and your service to our community.
Oh, thank you, Holly. Yeah, I appreciate you spotlighting the fire department during this EMS week, and we had earlier in this month International Firefighters Day, and I just so much of what we do, the guys that are here in the department and the surrounding departments are just so dedicated and so desirous to help out and to, like I know myself included, feel that it's just their calling in life, and they feel so much satisfaction from helping others. So appreciate you being willing to spotlight that.
Truly a pleasure. Now, my friends, today's conversation has been a powerful reminder that behind every siren is a human being, someone trained, committed, and willing to step into someone else's worst day and make a difference. After hearing from our fire chief today, one thing is clear: emergency response is about far more than fighting fires. It's leadership, it's teamwork, it's preparation and compassion, and making critical decisions when every second matters. And while most of us will never wear the uniform, we all have a role to play in building safer, stronger communities. Sometimes that looks like learning CPR, as he recommended. Sometimes it's paying attention in an emergency. Sometimes it's checking in on a neighbor, preparing your family, or simply teaching your kids when to call 911. Preparedness isn't just the job of first responders, though, my friends. It starts with all of us. So here's my challenge to you this week. Reach out to one person this week and commit to doing one thing to be more prepared together. Whether that's taking a CPR class, creating an emergency plan, or learning more about the resources in your own community. Because preparation matters long before first responders arrive. The more that we are prepared as a community, the stronger our community can be together. Thank you for joining me on this journey of life. I hope that today's highlight has been encouraging, inspiring, and equipping so you can go out and live your life full of purpose. I'd be honored if you'd take a moment to leave a review, or better yet, subscribe. We can also stay in touch by joining my email list at hollycurby.com. That's HOLLYCURBY.com. Until next time, make it a great day for a great day.